the American trade war. What prompted United States to go to this extent that there is a worldwide negative reaction to these tariffs?
US is like bringing those economies on the countries on the knees and get what they want. So it's an art of negotiation, and it's a very tough negotiation, and it's a very different world we are living now today. The US demand would go down because of the tariffs, and when the global GDP will shrink into that, the global trade will shrink, and the world will get into the recession.
To what extent it will have negative impact on United States, whose economy is already under pressure?
Things are not that easy, and Pakistan needs to sit down with the US and try to renegotiate the terms.
Do you think negotiations, talks is an option, and American administration, after listening to Pakistan, can review its tariffs imposed on Pakistani imports?
So we are talking about that we'll negotiate, that the countries are already negotiating over there in the US. The world is going to be a very difficult year, and it's I don't have, or nobody has that crystal ball to see what's on the other side.
Every time it is celebrated that Pakistan got another program approved from IMF. So program after program, don't you think it will be huge burden on economy, and ultimately government of Pakistan has to pay back these all IMF loans with high markup?
We should not be celebrating that. We should be introspecting that okay, we got the loan, now we need to move on that. So the mindset is there. Till the time we are celebrating, we are not coming out to the eye.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello and welcome to Program Insight in V News English. Dear viewers, there is a global trade war after the announcement by the United States President of high tariffs for imports coming from different countries to United States of America. The world leaders globally have reacted strongly, but so far there is no reversal of this decision by the US administration. What will be the impact on global economy? It is also said that the prices worldwide will shoot up. And if these prices shoot up, what will be the impact on consumers? And then Pakistan is also among the affected countries with higher tariffs imposed by United States. Latest development is Pakistani Finance Minister Senator Aurangzeb has said that Pakistan will negotiate this thing with United States administration. In addition to this, there is a significant development within Pakistan. Pakistani government has reduced electricity prices both for domestic consumers as well as for industrial consumers. What will be its impact on domestic economy? Whether there will be any trickle-down effect for common man? And furthermore, Pakistan has witnessed lowest inflation in last 60 years as claimed by the government. We'll discuss these all economic issues, trade issues. We are fortunate to have with us senior business and economic analyst, very well known name in business and economy, Mr. Ali Khizar. Mr. Ali Khizar, very warm welcome to Program Insight in V News English.
Thank you for having me.
And we will start with this, the most hot global issue, the American trade war. First, tell us what prompted United States to go to this extent that there is a worldwide negative reaction to these tariffs, which have been imposed on biggest countries, on smaller economies, and with the friendly countries, with the non-friendly countries. No country has been spared.
First, why the US is doing it? Trump has a philosophy which he's working on. He wants to bring the manufacturing back to the US. He wants to bring the jobs back to the US, and he's been saying that the many countries across the world are sending goods to the US, and US is having very low tariff on that, while the many other countries having very high tariff on the US, and the US has moved over the past 3-4 decades, the manufacturing to the many other countries, like the rise of the China, the Vietnams, and all those countries has been manifested by a US industrial sector gradually moving out to those sectors and then being catering to that. So he is trying to reverse that. He wants to bring back the U.S. What would you say is the trade balance towards the U.S. side, and that is to reduce the fiscal deficit and that which is piling. So, but the way it's doing it, it's kind of disrupting it. I mean, he's imposed tariffs across the world and he's open for the negotiation for the world. But things are like it's disrupting the world the way the COVID has disrupted the world. Already, you've seen that the oil prices have plummeted and the other the US markets and the EU markets are all are going down. And the reason is this: that is that nobody knows what is the ramification of that. And many economies and many countries are renegotiate with the US. So this is going to pan out in two ways. Either the Trump will fold, or the other countries will lay down in front of the US and agree to the terms. And I think the latter is the most chances on that. For example, countries like Vietnam or Bangladesh, who have very heavy exports of there towards the US, and if the US exports are affected the way they are, and they have a very high tariffs on those countries, that would adversely impact it. So they are already the Vietnam vice president was in the US, and the Bangladesh and other countries are moving, and they're trying to negotiate the terms with the US. And US may ask for something, they'll give it to that, and they'll renegotiate that. So what the US is doing, US is disrupting the world, and US is like bringing those economies on the countries on the knees and get what they want. So it's an art of negotiation, and it's a very tough negotiation, and it's a very different world we are living now today. And nobody knows what are the ramifications of these, and there's so much interdependencies on so many other things that it can help anyone, it can not help anyone. But what we know for sure is like the US demand would go down because of the tariffs, and when the global GDP will shrink into that, the global trade will shrink, and the world will get into the recession where things are. I mean, if the things are not being reversed.
As you said, global economy will be in recession. And last time we witnessed in 2007 global economic crisis. So now, point is there are a number of large economic nations, and they have immediately reviewed their economic and investment policies towards United States. Number of French, British, European countries which have been investing in United States have decided to review their investments. So what do you think? These were some of the countries which were earlier American allies. So with this big decision of reviewing their investment in United States, to what extent it will have negative impact on United States, whose economy is already under pressure?
I mean, it's an investment. It's a different thing. The first not that there's so much interlinked to the US. They so much depend upon the exports of their countries to the US. They so much depend upon their defense to the US. If you talk about the EU in terms of the NATO and all that, and they're already suffering. You see that they didn't think about the consequences when they went into the Ukraine war and all that, and then there's a supply of the gas being disrupted from the Russia, and that has adversely impacted the EU. And that now the US is coming out of the Ukraine war, and the EU is like in a tough position. They have to jack up their spend on the defense, and now the tariffs are over there. So this is going to be very complicated situation. I don't think so. They can react much more to that. Yes, they are retaliating. They're on that. One big country is China, of course, which has the highest trade surplus with the US, and China is trying to spur the demand domestically and all that, and they retaliated with the tariffs to the US. But again, it's going to be very difficult time for the China, but it's going to be very difficult time for the rest of the world. For a country like Pakistan, whose exports are only mainly in textile, and it comprises of a very small number of the world export to the US, but it's going to impact as well. And for us, it's a big number, and we export around $5 billion, textile to that. If there is a decline of about 20% of it, that's a big number for us. And if we allow imports to come in the US by lowering the tariffs into that, that will that would put pressure on the import, and we don't have reserve. We have a balance of payment constraint and all that, and that would put a pressure on our currency and on our nascent macroeconomic stability. So things are not that easy, and it's Pakistan needs to sit down with the US and try to renegotiate the terms. And the other thing is that when China and the Vietnam and those countries are not like exporting to the US, they may be dumping the products to other countries like Pakistan and that may affect the domestic industries in Pakistan as well. I mean, those industries they're working on the framework of the import substitution. They may suffer if the tariffs are reduced. For instance, automobile tariffs are reduced. That would bring in more of the imports of the car in Pakistan, and overall car prices go down and the sales would move up, and that would put in pressure on the balance of payment. Then the chemicals in the factory goods market, already China is dumping into the Pakistan. The more dumping will come into that, and that would adversely impact our industries more. So it's going to be a very difficult situation, and it's not easy to say that what has happened, and investment of the other countries to the US might not that be a case. US has attracted investment in other ways. US has other ways to attract.
Exactly. As you talked about Pakistan, that its export to United States would be affected. As Finance Minister Mr. Aurangzeb hinted that government of Pakistan would negotiate with the American administration. So do you think negotiations, talks is an option, and American administration, after listening to Pakistan, can review its tariffs imposed on Pakistani imports?
You have to understand that it's not Pakistan, it's the whole world is saying that. The whole world is negotiating with the US. And we are not that smart. We are not that capable. And we are not that forthcoming. Many other countries are already. So we are talking about that we negotiate, but the countries are already negotiating over there in the US. So it's kind of first mover advantage will go there first, get but first. So Pakistan may not get that advantage. Pakistan, so it's yes, of course Pakistan should do the negotiation. Of course Pakistan should talk about it. Pakistan should work on lowering the tariff of the US and increasing the imports from the US to lower the tariffs imposed on the Pakistani goods exports. So of course Pakistan should do that, and Pakistan will do that. But Pakistan is not the only country that is doing it. Everyone else is doing it. So the question is that what trump card Pakistan has to trump Trump.
Wow.
That is the thing, and I don't think Pakistan has it.
So, Mr. Ali Khizar, of course, as you said, that the whole world is going through this difficult time. What options Pakistan has? Number one. But before you discuss these options, what actually were the issues that there was high tariff imposed on Pakistani imports? It is quoted or said that frequent internet disruptions plus SROs and a number of other things. So please share your insight. What were actual issues which were quoted by American administration while imposing tariffs on Pakistani imports? Was this internet issue or SROs or certain other things? If so, then how these things, irritants, could be removed by Pakistani trade authorities?
I mean, it's not that simple because of that. It's the US has used a simple formula about how much is the trade deficit of the US with that country, and divided by their exports, and they get to the formula or something like that. So this is a simple way doing it, and every country has tariffs on that. So it's not the internet issue or some particular SROs that are working on that. It's a much broader issue, and it's not a Pakistan specific issue that is happening. It's a global issue, and that's what American thinking philosophy under the Trump to deal with the world. And Pakistan is just a country. There's nothing special on that. But so of course, what we need to is we need to reduce the tariffs of the goods are coming from the US. But even if we do that, how much that the goods we can bring from the US which are competitive? So the question is that if we reduce the trade tariff at a trade deficit with the US by importing more, for instance, we import cotton from the US. and already the duty is low. But the thing is, his cotton is the much cheaper coming from Brazil than in US. So if we want to attract our importers to go for cotton from the US, we have to give the concession to that, and that will bring prices up. Or we provide fiscal subsidies, and there's a ramification of that. If we import the soya bean from that, then again, what the other option we have is there's a ramification for that. If we whatever we are importing, if it is compatible in the US, we would have been importing to the US. And if we are giving any concession to the US, which is compromising on the imports from the other countries, like for instance in from European Union, so they may question about dealing with the EU state GSP plus status. And if we reduce the tariff with the US and increase the tariff to the China to move from the goods we are importing from the China to the US. The China is the biggest bilateral trader, bilateral lender to Pakistan, and we need the Chinese rollover to work on that. Then if we import the oil from the US, its freight cost is much higher. And if we are not importing oil from the Middle East is a bilateral lender. So it's such a complicated situation, and Pakistan cannot move much in that part because it's not easy to import more than from the US. The kind of balance of payment constraint we have, the kind of import restriction we're trying to that. But since our export is heavily tilted towards the US and the EU and all that, so we are kind of in a stuck situation. So it's not an easy situation for Pakistan. But having said that, there were going to be disruption in the short term in the world, but over the period of time, because of the high tariffs in the Vietnam, high tariffs in China vis-a-vis Pakistan, so there are some goods which are being exported from China and Vietnam in textile, in man-made textile, and all that, where Pakistan is not present, or Pakistan is present like in not in a big way. So we need to invest and work on present coming on that. But on the flip, the tariff from the Turkey is 10%, and Turkey, even if Turkey is not as cost effective as Pakistan, but there's a 19% difference. So there may be some items that Turkey may be taking over on that. Then India is at 26%, and India is a much better negotiation power with the US and may reduce its tariff. So and some garments can move to the India, some that can move to the Turkey and all that. So there are issues where we need to work on that. But there is an opportunity as well that we can move certain industry from Vietnam and China where to export to the US. But again, it's going to be happening in the medium term, but in the short term, it's going to disrupt the world badly. But in a way that oil prices are coming down and all that, that's good for Pakistan inflation, which you already talked about. It's at the lowest level as well. So there are positive, negative things all in between and all that. But the world is going to be a very difficult year. And it's I don't have, or nobody has that crystal ball to see what's on the other side. So it's all guesstimates, and all estimates are working on that, but there's so much intricacies and so much complexities involved in that. It's very hard to say how the world would be a year down the road. But
I think as you said, the whole world will be suffering. But the world is too large, and as you said, Pakistan is mainly focusing on the United States and Europe. We have seen recently that Africa is on the rise. Markets in Africa are opening up for investment. They want more imports from Pakistan because it's cheaper than other countries. So, don't you think that it's right that Pakistan should explore more markets other than America, other than Europe, other than traditional countries with Pakistan sending almost everything? So this large African continent, Latin America, Australia, Far East, these regions in the past have been ignored.
Of course, we should do that. And I mean, but that cannot take the importance of our exports to the US. I mean, there is a certain purchasing power in those countries, and there's certain demand.
That is higher one, exactly.
And over there, yes, and Australia is a small market. It's a very small country versus the US. And African countries are like you may be able to have engineering goods and bikes and cars and all that, but we are not getting into that. Of course, India is big over there, China is big over there. So the countries who have already invested over there, they've already captured those markets, and Pakistan is not competitive enough to do that. But of course, we need to work on that. But that doesn't mean that the importance of exporting to the US can be undermined. Not at all. So they're two separate things. We need to focus on that. We should focus on the diversification, but we need to protect our key markets. That's very important.
On domestic economy, there have been two important developments. First, the country has witnessed lowest inflation. But question is, over last many months, of course, this inflation indicators have been coming down, but still common man is affected with high price hike. Although if inflation indicators have come down, lowest in last, perhaps as it is said that approximately 59, 60 years, it's the lowest inflation. But important thing is, if it is lowest one, common man should feel that there is low inflation. Common man should feel that prices of edible items are down. So when common man will be getting relief of these all economic indicators about which government boasts so much?
I mean, this is this low inflation. Of course, inflation is low, and it's a statistical reality, and it's just a number. But the ground reality is something we need to see that
Exactly.
between 21 and 24, the food prices doubled. In 22, 23, and 23, 24, the prices were improved by 30 and 20%. Now, from 24 to 25, if the food prices are come down by, like, say, 7%, this means that prices which doubled, like from 100 to 200, now they're back to somewhere 184 or something. So
True.
still the prices are 184 what it was 100 in 2021. But the purchasing power, the income was with those people who are earning 100 in 2021 are not even earning 184 today. They perhaps are earning around 150 or even less, given the low GDP growth and all that. So when people are earning less, their purchasing power has eroded. Their ability to spend has lower, and that would remain a reality for a few years. It will take slowly to catch up. So inflation is a number, and when the number was very high 1 2 years, it generally comes down that way. I mean, Sri Lanka, if you see the in 2022 23, Sri Lankan inflation went up to 70%, and within 8 10 months, the inflation come down to 2% or something. So it's like Pakistan inflation went down into 70% or something if you compound it by the 2 years. So it's about boiled down to the same rate what it's down up there. So it's like this, But the reality is this: because purchasing power has eroded, people have less employment opportunity. The GDP
True.
growth is suffering. People are not earning more, and their ability to spend has gone down, and they're still feeling the burn. So it's like it's naive on the government perspective. It's like inhumane on the government perspective to trumpet on that low inflation, take
Exactly.
it as a success. That's inhumane, I think. And that's I think inconsiderate from the government side to the, like, when you see the Pakistani team playing cricket and they play terrible cricket, you're losing the match, and just like when the other team required like 3 runs of 20 balls and you just take 1 wicket and you just like that's that you can't really celebrate when you're losing. So that's kind of a celebration government is having.
And the second thing, the yesterday announcement made by Prime Minister, massive cut in electricity tariffs for both domestic as well as industrial consumers. So, of course, domestic consumers will get some relief. But when it comes to the industrial consumer, whatever products they are producing, mainly that affects every common man, from construction material to food items and things like that. Do you think after getting this massive relief, industrial producers will also lower prices of their products?
Well, the prices have been they reduced. That's a good thing. When one should commend the government of doing so. I mean, there are reasons for they negotiated with the IPPs. That's how they get 1.3 rupees. Then there's the lower interest rate and lower oil prices, and they've moved a higher smart move of high PDL, and then give you the TDS of 1.7 rupees. So overall, the price have moved down for industry for 5 to 6 rupees, and for domestic for 7 to 8 rupees. So that's commendable. That's a good thing to do that. But will the consumer prices will reduce? I don't think so much. Many metal prices will reduce. Say some items like I was talking to a guy who makes paper. but the paper used in packaging. He said that the probably I'm thinking that paper prices will go down because the energy cost is coming down, and that would mean some packaging costs would come down. That would mean the margin decline in the prices. But when I talk to many manufacturers and the manufacturers, they say that they already margins are squeezed, so they'll probably they'll get the margins back, but may not reduce the price as well. But overall, the competitiveness might improve, and the potential to export is improved. But I think lowering the prices of the domestic consumer is not that a wise idea, because we should not encourage more of a domestic user. We should encourage more of the usage of the industries, and industry prices should come down more. I mean, they've come down from 13.5 cents to now around 11 cents. Now they're getting closer to 9 cents, which they claim to have a global competitive, the regionally competitive, energy tariffs. And as sooner we get to that, more closer we get to that, the more potential of exports we have. But the point is that we need to boost industries, and we need to boost industrial demand to generating export or substituting imports by reducing price. But that's happening at the day when the US has the US has imposed the tariffs, which going to disrupt our exports and may dump up the other countries to challenge our domestic industries. So timing kind of they're kind of unlucky to get that timing. But it's a nice move. It's a good move, and they should reduce the electricity prices more, because there should be more electrification in the country. I mean, lately the government has imposed the capital the levy on the captive users on the gas. So now with energy prices coming down, with the electricity prices coming down, the many are thinking to move to the electrification. Overall, electrification should increase in Pakistan. The cars should be electrified. The gas usage of the geyser should be electrified. The commercial areas should be electrified, and the industry should be on the electrification. So the primary energy within the use of the electricity should be higher. It's efficient, it's environmentally cleaner, as we have more cleaner fuels coming into the mix, and the renewables coming into the mix. So reducing the electricity prices is definitely going to induce the demand, and I think it's a welcome move.
Ali Khizar Saab, these industrial and business cartels are very, very powerful. They sit in provincial assemblies, they sit in the National Assembly, they influence government decisions which are related to economy, trade, and business. So how it is possible to dismantle these cartels and ensure that consumer rights, consumer interests are protected?
I mean, the cartels are there. So some are cartels, but not everyone is the cartel over here, to be honest. And for that, you need to bring teeth to the regulatory agencies like Competition Commission of Pakistan there, but it's
Exactly.
still less. You need to bring teeth to that. You need to have more proactive, the SECP, more proactive consumer laws and all that, and they can ensure that the cartel, if there are incidents of the cartel, to be removed. So the regulatory agencies should be streamlined, and should work more on towards reducing the cartel. And that is all the way of it. But I don't see many cartels in this way. I mean, many industries have slack, like cement cartel we've been hearing about long, but there's a
Sugar
slack in
cartel.
the industry. But when this cartel functions usually when the demand is high, capacity is close. When there is a slack in the industry and the capacity, maybe the automobile, maybe the cement, and many other industries, with industries operating at 60%, for 50%, 70, 80%. So everyone like to undercut over there. So the cartel formalization is hard, and the consumer become the kings when you have slack in the industry. So I think these days it's more about the utilization of the capacity is an issue, rather than part of about the cartels today.
So, a government in the last IMF program said that it will not enter into the next IMF program, but recently government entered into this latest IMF program. So every time it is celebrated that Pakistan got another program approved from IMF. So program after program, don't you think it will be huge burden on economy, and ultimately government of Pakistan has to pay back these all IMF loans with high markup?
Unfortunately, whether it was Imran Khan government, whether it was Subhash Sharif government, or whether it was any other government, every government now take pride in going to the IMF program, and they celebrate into
They
that.
celebrate exactly.
That's such an unfortunate outcome. That's like celebrating when you required the other team requires 3 runs to win, and the 20 balls it's 7 wickets, and you just get 1 wicket and you celebrate. That kind of celebration is this. That's very unfortunate. We should not be celebrating that. We should be introspecting that okay, we got the loan, now we need to move on that. So the mindset is there. Till the time we are celebrating, we are not coming out to the idea. Till the time we think that it's the wrong thing to do, but we have to do the thing, and then we work on the correctness and on the path of the rightfulness, then we can only move out. So the way that they are celebrating, that's saying that they have no plans to go out of the IMF program, and we've been saying that we will perpetually into the program for the past two and a half decades.
You very nicely elaborated that whether it is PTI government or PMLN government or any coalition government, different type of claims are made, and every successive government says that economic reforms process. These reforms we are hearing since decades and decades. So will there will be any year when the economic reforms would be ultimately completed and Pakistan's economy will be turn around?
Well, for economic reforms, you need to have political reforms as well. You have to have institutional reforms and all that, and we don't have the liberty to say much about that. So until we get those reforms, the economic reforms are not going to happen.
Very good.
I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Exactly. Political reforms are linked with the economic reforms. First, there has to be political stability. If there is political stability, election reforms, transparent elections, and things like that.
And institution trespassing should end. What's so blatant in Pakistan?
Exactly. Another very, very important thing that if you are definitely as senior business and economic analyst, every day it is said that Pakistan is conducive environment for foreign investment. And after 2-3 days, I mean, next week, Pakistan will also be hosting a mineral summit that there should be investment in Pakistan's mineral sector. There should be investment in different sectors in Pakistan. So to what extent Pakistan has an ideal investment climate?
Well, it's a very unfortunate and that we don't have a good investment climate. When the capital flight from the country is very high, when the human capital is draining like anything, when the taxation is Pakistan is much higher than any other country, when your income tax is taxed for individual at 38 to 50%, when your corporate are effectively taxed 50 and the banks are taxed at 60%, then you pay for the 15% the dividend, and so an effective tax rate of 55 to 65%. And individual are paying this tax, so nobody would invest that. The capital formation is not there, and what kind of a service we get there? We spend on an education, we spend on our health, we spend on our security, we get the poor air quality and so forth, policing and all that. You see that what kind of a public service delivery and what kind of a taxation we have. In this, then, when the domestic investors are like moving away, they're moving the capital. Everyone who has the opportunity to take the capital or is taking the capital out, how can you expect the foreigner to invest in that? So you don't need to be an economist to that. You just need to have some common sense.
Very simple, exactly, very simple. So do you think in the days to come, in the months to come, State Bank of Pakistan will further lower its policy rate?
I mean, the policy rate has come down to 12% from 22% in the last 1 year, and there's an impact of 100 basis point on the demand, which is going to translate into next few months. I mean, it takes usually 6 to 12 months, 18 months to do that, and we've just started from the June last year, and we still like 8 months into the cycle. So we probably see another 6-8 months, and how the cycle would evolve into that, and how that would put pressure on the balance of patent and import. And we see that when interest rates here were coming out, the State Bank reserves are moving up. They moved up from the low to 3 billion in 23 February to December 24, but from 12 billion they moved back to 1.5 billion in the last 8-9 weeks. And so that's a worry. So unless we get down the reserve building up again, imports are getting into control, SPB may continue with the cautious. I think SPB will remain cautious, and it would may take another pause. And maybe by December, you would have an interest rate of 10 to 11%.
Lastly, I would like to seek your one-liner comment, strategic comment rather, how Pakistan can get economic stability in the time to come.
It's just to bring the social stability. It's just to bring the
social and political stability.
Just bring the rule of law. Let's put it that
Just,
way. One rule of
just bring the rule of law, rule of the constitution, and it will definitely ensure economic stability. Thank you so much. Despite your very busy schedule, you shared your thoughts on one of the most strategic and emerging economic issues, including global trade war by United States of America and some of the Pakistan's domestic economic issues. We hope our viewers will get benefit of these strategically important views made by Ali Khizar Saab. Thank you once again. And dear viewers, till our next program, goodbye and Allah Hafiz from studios.
no. Thank you.